Mystery Brothers. Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Bros.
What's up? What's up, everybody? So this is now the fourth episode here of Mystery Bros. I'm pretty excited. It's been fun. In this episode here, we're gonna go over. We're kind of going to dive into the Nazis. I know it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good. Obviously, we don't agree with anything that the Nazis did or were doing. Of course not. But it's very fascinating, the experiments and just the tales about stuff they were doing. So we're going to go into some speculative stuff, some really out there theories of stuff that they may or may not have been doing, and then we're also going to go into some of the shockingly true stuff that they were doing that is crazy messed up. Again, we don't support Nazism or any of that stuff, but it's just really fascinating.
No, it is, and since the technology's out, like they were far advanced in technology, so it's very cool to look at what they were maybe capable of.
Yeah, they were doing some really interesting, like way ahead of their time experiments.
They said it was 1 to 6, 1 to every 6 U.S. to French soldier they faced on the West front, and they said 1 to 3 on the Soviet front. So, and they were able to hold up for like a long time.
And they were pretty successful at the beginning of the war and for the first beginning. Yeah. Aurel is from Switzerland, so he knows all about Germany and the Nazis and stuff.
I speak German. So I've always been fascinated with World War II movies since I could understand language. Could understand the guards, what they were saying. So it was always cool. And we were very fortunate that Germany never attacked Switzerland because we had all their money. And
you guys were neutral. You guys were just like, we don't bother us. We won't do anything over here.
Otherwise, like you attack us, and that money that you put in our banks will just disappear.
Quick side note: how did Switzerland become the spot where like all the banks and the money is?
We can go into another episode.
is that a full episode's worth of shit? Or is that,
I actually don't know. I actually don't know.
It's interesting. Maybe we'll look into that at some point. But so first off, we'll probably get into some more of the weird speculative experiments that they may or may not have been getting into, as you come to expect from us at the Mystery Bros, the weird alien-infused stuff.
Right.
We've talked about aliens like in depth, like in every single episode so far. So we may get away with only talking about them for a little bit here, right?
Could be.
We might be talking for 20 minutes about aliens again this episode, but first we'll get into the weird stuff, and then I'm going to get into the stuff that is sadly, shockingly true. Some crazy stuff that they were doing there, the Nazis. So we'll jump into that. Aurel's going to take it from here.
All right, yeah. So the first thing, or the most interesting thing about World War II, is probably called Die Glocke. It was a German. It's supposed to be a German Wunderwaffen, which is a wonder weapon in English. It was just supposed to bring catastrophic. It was supposed to be a big weapon, or it was some kind of time travel machine. Some people think. It could have been that, or it could have been, or people, we really don't know. For decades, has been a scattered rumor of the Glocke. It's a space-going UFO-like saucer craft. So there's mountain evidence now that's confirming that's from the Nazi era. And it was in a hidden, facility in Poland.
So they've actually found it?
So they actually have not found it.
Oh, okay. But are you talking about that structure that's still there? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. However, those who claim that have used the Nazi bell, they visited the moon, Mars, and possibly even the Aldebaran solar system.
That makes sense.
They often speak of the bell as this craft of unknown energy, and it was a source of powering sustained flight beyond Earth's orbit. Although the technology was unknown to the rest of the world, its central component to the German space program that began more than a century before, supposedly.
So it was like a craft? is what it was? It was some sort of spacecraft?
People say it was some kind of craft, some kind of thing that was doing maybe some damage. It says in like the reports that when people were working on it, when the 5 of the 7 scientists who worked on it died, it was like killing everything in 20 meter
radiation.
20 meter diameter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when we watched that little video about it, they said that they think it gave off radiation, right?
Yeah.
It would give people radiation poisoning.
Yeah. So the witnesses say the bell was 12 to 15 feet high and roughly 12 feet wide. What the bell? So those who claimed the bell is say it was fabricated by very hard and heavy metal, along with lighter metal referred to as Lichtmetall. These witnesses say that the designers of the bell used beryllium peroxide and thorium peroxide, some chemicals,
to create it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They say
I don't know what any of that shit is, but okay.
The bell was said to have an effect zone between 490 and 660 feet around the craft. Some claim that the unexplainable things within this zone, such as the affirmation of crystals within the animal tissues, are decompositive of plant matter into greasy substances. The Bell flying saucer was said to be powered by liquid fuel known as cerium-525.
Where are they getting this information?
I'll get there.
Okay.
So the cerium-525 was placed in a large counter-rotating cylinder that spun at high speeds. These rapid spinning combinations made a highly charged electrostatic tube and created anti-gravity propulsion. That powered a spaceship to considerable heights and rates of even travel.
Okay.
Historians with penchant of the conspiracy theory claim the German flying bell was housed in the facility referred as Die Riese, the giant in English. Die Riese was located near the mine, near the Czech border.
Okay.
So
you said real quick. You said that this had been going on for like hundreds of years, right? Doing this research, or they think maybe.
So they said the research. We don't know how. So let's go a little deeper. There was a UFO crash in 1936 in Germany. So they think that maybe some of the crash material they were able to re-engineer.
Oh, they think maybe they back-engineered stuff from that craft?
Yeah.
God, that stuff's so interesting to me, God damn it.
Let's get to the evidence of what we actually have in front of us.
Okay.
So the evidence. So after the close of World War II, many Nazis were tried for their war crimes against humanity. So a lot of these took places, like if you heard of the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah, Nuremberg trials, yeah.
So they were doing like all the human violations and everything that they did. So one defendant was Jacob Sporrenberg, a former Nazi SS, Obergruppenführer, one of the highest commissioned Nazi SS ranks.
SS, man, they were some fucking...
yeah, SS.
They were some brutal people, dude.
You did not want to mess with the SS.
No.
So for some of these SS officers were tried in Poland for what they did to the Polish people there, especially the Jews. So against the Polish War Crimes Court, Sporrenberg he was tried for the murder of 60 German engineers, scientists, and technicians. In his affidavit,
he murdered German engineers and technicians?
Yeah.
Oh.
He murdered all the scientists, everybody who worked on the project. He murdered.
Damn.
And he said Sporrenberg gave details at the Nazi bell, calling it the Glocke. Describing the secrecy surrounding the bell, Sporrenberg admitted that the scientists and engineers were murdered to prevent them from disclosing any details of the technology, which was with those outside the program to the outside world.
Wow.
And that actually did happen. 60 engineers did die at that base.
Wow. He murdered 60 people, Germans that worked on it?
German scientists, German engineers.
They were ruthless, huh?
Yeah.
Damn.
So according to Sporrenberg's affidavit, the bell was highly advanced technology that produced a hissing, buzzing sound when operational. He noted that because of the sound, his fellow Germans referred to the bell as the Bienenstock, the word for behave.
Ooh, the word that means behave in German.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But the evidence for the Nazi bell does not end with Sporngeber. The other person is the painter there who worked there. His name was Charles A. Delshu. He has further evidence of the bell's earlier existence. Delshu's images of anti-gravity bell might be an indication of German engineers had knowledge of the bell long before it was actually deployed to World War II. Yeah. And some even claim that the bell paintings are evidence that he was in contact with our good boys, extraterrestrials.
Hey, aliens.
With a pro-Nazi agenda.
We need like an alien counter. Like every time we talk about aliens. That's the Mystery Bros drinking game. Every time we bring up the aliens, you take a drink.
Yeah, I don't know if our viewers could...
if you're 21 and up, of course.
If not, you can find ways.
No, steal your parents' beer. Come on.
So Deschel's paintings are highly detailed images of the craft prior to the Nazi Bell project. So that has that's where they could have gotten the inspiration from.
Okay.
So the written evidence of the Nazi Bell's existence, the Polish author who's done a lot of research, published a book called The Wunderwaffe. In the text, Witowski refers to the futuristic German UFO technology as the Nazi bell. So he reported the first discovered evidence of the bell was in 1997 while poring over classified transcripts from Sporngeberg's Polish war crimes court testimony, which Witowski says he also received documents from unnamed individual who had worked with the Poland intelligence community, but he said he wasn't allowed to release those transcripts,
really
having detail of the Nazi bell. Now, so what happened to the bell?
Yeah.
What happened to the bell?
What happened to it?
So many conspiracy theorists agree that the Nazis shifted the
conspiracy theorists agree
that the Nazi bell could be shifted to the Arctic Circle.
Duh.
In Antarctica. They could have took it there.
I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later.
Or South America following the execution of top scientists. It has been said that Nazi leaders continued their secret space program developing UFO technologies and communicating with extraterrestrials. Ooh.
In Germany or in other countries?
In other countries after the war.
Yeah, because they basically got like taken out of Germany, right?
Yeah.
They're like, you guys are smart as fuck. You did some terrible things, but like, hey, come work with us now. You're too smart. Yeah, a lot of like Nazi scientists came to America and like.
Yeah, that's basically we didn't have an American program. We had a German program.
Dude, I know. I'm
gonna get into that later about Nazis, but maybe even going to the moon.
Yeah. Oh boy. And didn't a lot of them escape to like Argentina or South America in general?
Yes.
Argentina. Yeah, a lot of the SS are like people that got away.
Hans Kammler.
Yeah. Josef Mengele, who I'm going to talk about later, he escaped and got away to Argentina.
So the leader of like the supposed project, Hans Kammler, they think that he might have taken the bell.
Oh. Where would he take it?
Well, there's a crash in 1964 in Texburg, Pennsylvania, that looks exactly like the bell-shaped object.
Oh.
So people think that maybe he came in the future, or he sold the U.S. bell to the U.S. for exchange for immunity. But like the most obvious explanation for his disappearance, I mean, like a lot of SS high-ranking officials did just disappear, with no trace of them. But a lot of them went to Argentina, so he could have easily just gone to Argentina as well. That's important to know. But that's the
thing in Pennsylvania. When was this?
1964.
It's when it crashed.
It's when it crashed in Texburg, Pennsylvania. Okay. A bell-shaped object looks exactly like the one drawn.
Really?
Yeah. So people think maybe.
What if it was someone just trying to copy, or was that not?
Well, why did it just crash? This guy.
I don't know. They were trying to build it or something, and they fucked it up. I don't know.
Right. Or he could have taken it to or some people even believe that that a handful of Nazi leaders traveled to the Aldebaran solar system with the Bell technology.
What evidence do they have of that? None.
No.
That's cool.
But I think it's kind of cool. If there was a base there, so that's
Yeah.
what we know. Like, if it did all this shit that that like people claimed it did, probably not. But like,
Isn't that like cement structure that's in Poland? It's still there, right?
yeah,
And that's where they believe that it was kept.
it was. They could have also been just a water tower because those are the exact same shapes as the foundation of what a water tower would have.
You never know.
But it's pretty interesting, pretty fascinating. It's a cool story, that's for sure.
Definitely.
And it was a witness from an SS ranking official who gave a testimony, and those people actually did die. 60 people did die, so that is confirmed. What they were working on, he claims was the bell, but we unfortunately don't really know.
He claims, as in the scientist, he claims he was working on the bell
He claimed they were all killed because of the bell.
because the information was so sensitive.
Yeah.
Why? God damn it. Fucking Nazis. Like, why couldn't they just, like, talk to us about it? You know, like, if after the war you lost already, like, could all work together and, like, rebuild it. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But no one wants to work together.
No, I think a lot of them are like, oh shoot, like we don't want the Soviets to have this technology.
Yeah,
so
they don't
just
want. Every country doesn't want the other major country to have it. I get it with China, though. I wouldn't want China. I wouldn't work together with China on anything like that. I don't trust them.
Right, so if China was coming over to conquer you, would you destroy
Yeah, I'd destroy shit that could possibly give them more power. But
So that's the
crazy,
cool, yeah, it's
dude.
cool about the Nazi bell, the Glocke,
die Wunderwaffen
the
or
Wunderwaffen,
Wunderwaffen
Wonder Weapon.
in Switzerland, do they speak? Is it a type of German or
Yeah,
is it just
it's a dialect.
It's a different dialect of German.
It's a different dialect. Of German.
Okay.
Schweizerdeutsch,
What'd you say?
Swiss German.
Oh, okay. What's the next crazy experiment you got for us?
I think a lot of people. Have you ever heard of Foo Fighters?
Foo Fighters?
Foo Fighters.
The band?
No.
No.
The history of these were the first UFO reported. A lot of Allied pilots during the war. So this is actually very credible. A lot of World War II fighters during the war were flying, and they would see this fireball object in the skies. It wouldn't attack them, but it wouldn't leave them alone. So like, the pilots got freaked out, spooked, and like kind of leave their system. It wouldn't attack, but it just wouldn't leave them alone. It would just dart all over, just be this big fireball. And it was seen a lot over Germany and occupied France during the time of Germany. And other places as well. There's so many accounts of these things.
Fighter pilots said that they saw these?
Yeah.
Okay.
The planes. And like, they knew they weren't going crazy because like the person behind it saw them. Like,
It was Allied guys?
Allied fighters.
No Nazi or Axis guys, fighters said that they saw anything like
Nope.
that? Okay.
Or not that we know of.
So that's what makes
But
us
it could have been like maybe their regime was like, if you came out and said to the, hey Lieutenant, I just saw like a fireball, they might have been okay,
Yeah, shut
maybe
up.
he's done, send him to a.
We'll get into this later. They were too hopped up on meth to be worrying about fucking fireballs in the sky.
Right.
Anyway.
So a lot of them, so a lot of scientists like kind of thought like, how are they gonna like disprove what they're seeing? So a lot of people came up with the electric charged fire that happens during a storm, which you can see lights.
Yeah.
But
We
like,
talked about that a little bit in the last episode,
Yeah.
right? How they saw some red lightning.
I mean, that's what could have Christopher Columbus could have saw.
Yeah,
his first
true.
witness. But so that's one explanation. But pilots were really angry at that. Like, I did turns, I did loops. This thing would
it
keep
was just
following.
following
Thing would just keep following me. And these are just
I believe them.
yeah, and these
Then
aren't just
in that
one
case,
pilots,
yeah.
right? And other people thought like it was just stress. I mean, you see like tanks, you see explosions everywhere, you see people firing at you, so then maybe just see stuff like
Yeah.
afterwards. But I guess what would tie it to the Germans. So the author Renato Vasco believed the Foo Fighters were Nazi secret weapons. In his work to intercept UFO, he reprinted a revised English edition He claims that the Foo Fighters were in fact a form of ground-launched, automatically guided, jet-propelled flake mine called the Fireball, or the Fireball. The device was supposedly operated by special units of the SS and resembled a turquoise shell in shape and flew by means of gas jets that spun like a Catherine wheel around the fuselage. So it looks like it's basically just like a jet on gas. Like looks like it's on fire and it's like spinning around. So like that's what they claim they see.
Interesting.
But here's the thing: there's no evidence to support this.
They haven't found any.
They haven't found any evidence or anything in 70 years. They haven't found anything that supports that the Germans had like some kind of technology.
But they did destroy a lot of shit, didn't they? The Germans.
It could have, yeah. So it could have been German, but there's just no evidence. They found nothing to support that they were the cause of the Foo Fighters, and these were the first real reported UFO phenomenon where people just couldn't explain like what it was.
How many cases were there? Like how many people saw them?
There's over 350. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And how did it work? You said it was on fire and it like spun?
Yeah, so like it was a jet fuselage thing, it like fire and spun like that. But like, and it was like, what would you call it?
It was circular.
Yeah, so like it looked. Another theory is they just made like some kind of electromagnetic like field, like they create their own spark on the wireless to make it look spooky. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like, if it was German, why did it never attack? That's what they're always like. Why did it just keep falling? Just to scare them? I guess that was the tactic.
Yeah, maybe. When was this? Like, this was all during the war, before the war?
This was all during the war. Yeah.
Nothing before the war.
Nothing before the war.
That makes me think it's some sort of German.
And no.
But what if it was like aliens? Like they notice like there's a lot of fucking bombs going off or something on Earth. Like what's going on? And they come down and check it out. You know?
Yeah, doing a little
they're
documentary.
Not any team. They're not going to help anybody, but they just want to see what's going on down here because there's all kinds of explosions and people dying.
Yeah,
you know.
True. So that's another.
Obviously, aliens is another theory. Here we are talking about aliens again here on Mystery Bros.
Yeah, definitely.
Take another drink.
It was just a ball of lightning. People said they saw.
I don't know if I believe that. I don't believe the ball of lightning. You know what I mean? If the pilots said that it was like following them and stuff, like I trust them. Like lightning doesn't do that.
And the fact that the Axis never reported any of this, never said they ever saw any balls of lightning.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah,
I think that makes it seem like it's. I think this is some sort of German thing.
I mean, I just wish like there's some kind of evidence. Like they're very good at written technology.
It's interesting that there's nothing there right now.
Or that anybody's ever claimed to have like come out and said they like, yes, I was working on this to like spoof the pilots.
I think they were very, very like loyal to the Nazi Party, and they were told not to tell anything. You know what I mean? And I think that they literally thought that like Aryan race was like a higher race of people. So it's like,
oh, it's not.
They wouldn't.
I'm just kidding.
They wouldn't give up like information just because they got captured or something. They would probably just be like, all right, it's my time to die. I'm not telling anybody. You know?
Right. I guess I could see that.
So I think that is. I would say that was German. I would guess. I'm gonna go with not aliens on this one. Shocker.
Me, I don't know. I'm 50-50 because I think there's good evidence to support that it was maybe German. I just wish someone would have come out and said like, yes, I worked on this project or something.
Sometimes people just don't come out, man.
Right.
You know?
And there's no evidence, no notes of anything.
Yeah, people are scared.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a big mystery, so guess we'll never know.
Yeah. That one's really interesting. What were those called again? The
Foo Fighters.
The Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters. Okay.
So we're gonna go even farther than we've gone before.
We're gonna go from crazy to even more crazy. Let's
So
go.
we're gonna go to even more crazy. So in 1976,
Then we'll bring it back to reality after that.
a Russian probe was landed on a particular spot on the moon and was doing some tests and diagnosis. So it brought like a sample back of the moon to Russia, and when they're doing that diagnostics, they realized someone's landed there before. Like it was like the moon was the dust was all tossed up from the out, like coming here, like someone's landed there before.
Who is this? The Russians?
Yes.
Okay.
So they thought someone, but the thing is, no U.S. any kind of U.S. thing has never been reported anything anywhere near that site where they landed.
Okay.
So they knew it couldn't have been U.S.
Okay.
So
Still could have been.
I guess like some stuff.
They could have found something weird and just not report. You know what I mean? But continue.
Okay. So if it wasn't the U.S., many people claim that it was Nazis. So many speculated it was Nazis since they were like highly technological advanced. So we basically had a German program. The Germans landed.
NASA was pretty much German for Wasn't like one of the big
Von Braun?
Werner von Braun was
Werner von
was one of the main scientists there, and he's a Nazi, right?
Yeah. He said in one interview, we had help. But anyways, so going back, they thought that the Germans were on the cusp, like the U-2 rockets that they used in World War II were the first rockets where they could, like, all right, we want a launch point and we're going to target, and that rocket's going to that target. Before that, like, there's no guided missiles system. They could really do that. So they thought they were maybe short.
Yeah, the Nazis invented like the guided missile,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So they thought like maybe the Nazis actually did go to the moon. However, here's the thing, like, I feel like they would have been proud that they went to the moon.
Yeah, they would have said something.
They would have
right?
said something. Someone would have come out. That's a big thing. But if it wasn't Nazis,
And this would have to be okay. So if this was during the Nazis, that would have to be like what in the 30s,
yeah, 30s and 40s.
30s and 40s. Like we didn't land on the moon until '69, right?
Yeah.
That's a long time before
Yeah.
before the supposed first moon landing, if that's true.
Correct.
You know, damn. But they had a lot of German scientists that help us get there,
Yeah.
so maybe they did it.
Yeah, there's no evidence. That,
But wouldn't they come out and say that?
Yeah,
Just like you said,
exactly.
like wouldn't they be like, "Bitch, we were on the moon first"?
yeah. Here's our flag.
Yeah, there would be a Nazi flag up on the moon. Could you imagine that? God, that would suck.
Maybe there was. Maybe they just didn't
Maybe
say
there
it.
was. Yeah, maybe. When the Americans got up there, they were just like, "Oh, let's toss this out of here."
We were the first people
Yeah,
here.
right? They're like, "Shit!" They see a Nazi flag, they're like, "Fuck, let's just take that down and forget that we ever saw that."
This was every year.
This is the first moon landing. Yeah, man, that's interesting. Is there any other evidence for it?
No. So people just speculate.
The only evidence is that the Russians
Saw like a craft.
saw a spot.
Yeah, where
they
a
saw
craft-
an actual craft.
No,
or they,
no craft
Okay.
where a craft like supposedly landed.
How do they
there.
know? There's an indent, like,
Yeah, like the like.
and there's no
tossed up.
atmosphere on the moon, so it would
Yeah.
just
And the moon dust was tossed up. Like it couldn't have just like someone had to unsettle it. There's no wind
aliens,
up there.
bro.
It could have been
Those
aliens,
aliens
too.
hanging out on the moon, dude. Come on, for sure.
But if you don't want to go the alien route, then the only other logic it could have been top secret U.S.
Yeah, dude. I don't know if I believe that the Nazis went to the moon. I mean, it's possible. It's I'm not saying it's like crazy. This isn't quite as crazy as I thought, but there's just no evidence at all. Like, and I think the biggest damning thing to that is that they were the Nazis. They would have for sure said, "We landed on the moon, bitches." Like, you know what I mean? They would have. They would have been proud of that. They would have announced that for sure. Right?
Right. Yeah. I think that's a big thing. Like someone would have also come out like I worked on the space program that went sent the Nazis to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. Hitler would be like, "We landed on the moon. We're the first humans to ever be on the moon." He would use that for like, "We're so racially superior." Yeah.
Unless it was
So I don't know
top
about that
secret.
one. Yeah, or just, you know.
If you don't want to go aliens, you gotta go Nazis.
No, man. No, there's other explanations for it. But I don't know. There's no other evidence that makes it tough to like. There would be like no
But, like,
records of it or anything.
Maybe they burnt it all, like you said,
Possible. Yeah.
and they killed all the scientists that were working on the space program.
But I feel like this would have had to have been before the war, right? Like they wouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah, why would
while
you
the
want
war was going on? I think they would
that'd
be focusing
like a
more
waste.
on
Yeah, it's a waste of resources.
Exactly. So this had to be like in the 30s, right? Like mid to late 30s. So the Nazis were around from what 33-ish, right?
Yeah, like around
until about 46.
Yeah, 45.
45.
The end of World War II.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's way ahead of everybody else if that's the case, but it's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible. I mean, we had like the means to create the technology back then, right? We just didn't do it until the 60s. We should look. Why did we just decide to go to the moon? It was just something that we wanted to do.
I think so.
And we just wanted to be first. And Russia was thinking about it, so we're like, "Fuck, we got to do it before them."
I think so.
Okay, yeah, I mean it's possible. Who knows?
And then if you want to go really out there, they said maybe the alleged crash was a UFO flying saucer from the Nazis
Roswell.
built. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that Roswell was a Nazi. But wasn't that in the 50s?
Yeah. So what they're saying is so the Nazis did have like round circular craft that they built. They weren't that good.
Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of those.
They weren't that good, but they had if they would have maybe eight more years or 5 more years to development, they could have made like a cool flying saucer.
Yeah.
So if you want to go, the more rational explanation is that all these German scientists built this flying saucer thing. They perfected it, and that's what crashed at Roswell. Some top secret.
I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Some top secret, code.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was technically all the Nazis that were working on it before now came to America and were working on it.
Yeah.
Or it could have been a time machine. Some people think it was maybe a German, a flying saucer that went through time and crashed. Doing some time experiments and crashed.
I've heard that they were working on time travel and stuff. Yeah. Einstein was working on that stuff.
Einstein
around that time.
he says they.
He's German, right? But he came to America way before the war, right? Germans were just really smart, dude. They were just ahead of it. I don't know why. I wonder what made them so.
They even said at the end of the war that they actually killed more Soviets than the Soviets killed the Germans, but they were still advancing because they just had so many.
Well, yeah, dude. The Soviets were. I think the Soviets lost more people in the war than anybody else, right? And they were just very brutal with their tactics.
There's a huge age gap right now. They say that if you were born in the year, I don't know, they said 1925.
Yeah.
You had a you had an 83% chance of not making it past your 23rd birthday.
Wow. Russia's rough, dude. Russia is rough.
And Russia was also bad. They also said anybody who didn't join the war effort would go to the gulags. You don't want to go to the gulags,
dude. Yeah, in Russia, man, they were just you're gonna just go die for Russia, and that's how it is. I mean,
tactically, the Germans were better, but the Russians just had so many people.
More people,
just
dude.
To throw at them
But all right, let's get into some more. Well, I'll start going into some more Now, this stuff is all pretty much true, all right? This is not speculative, weird stuff. This is all pretty true, but it's just still so shocking and crazy that, and weird that it's just something that we'll talk about. So the Nazis were pretty much one of the first armies, the first people to figure out the best performance enhancing ways for their soldiers. You know what I mean? They were very interested in keeping their soldiers alert and combating fatigue and stuff in their people, not just strategy of how to fight the war, which they were very good at, but they also were we need to figure out how to make our soldiers even just better. And so they did that. There's a lot of this information I got from this guy Norman Ohler. And he wrote this book called Blitzed, where they kind of go into the Nazis and all the different drugs and stuff that they used back then. But it's really interesting. Drugs were pretty important to just Germany in general, in the 1920s. Because, they just lost World War I. Things weren't going great for them. So they basically, there's some drugs going on, a lot of cocaine use, a lot of opium use, that kind of stuff. A lot of people were, depressed from World War I. The way that went, so they did a lot of cocaine, morphine, amphetamines, that kind of stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, 1930, the German government outlawed drugs. It was actually the first like war on drugs ever of any country. Like they basically just outlawed drugs in Germany. Yet, in 1935, there was the invention of a drug called Pervitin, which it was invented in Germany. It became like really popular, and that's pretty much because it's basically crystal meth. They literally just invented like crystal meth, methamphetamines, which is an extremely powerful stimulant, right? A big stimulant. It raises adrenaline, dopamine. Like it's doing meth, man. Like it's basically doing meth, and it makes you really like alert, like heightened senses and stuff. And they sold it in stores and stuff because they thought like, oh, this is just a performance enhancing like thing that people can take, like Pervitin. They literally had a deal with a chocolate company, and they sold Pervitin to the chocolate company, and the chocolate companies put Pervitin in their chocolate, and people were eating it. People were literally just eating meth back then. All right. It was actually marketed to like housewives, the chocolate. So it was like, hey, you can be ready, clean the whole house. Like, you know what I mean?
But how much was the dose though? Like, was it like a small
good amount?
A good amount?
Yeah, like people were doing meth in Germany just like on the daily.
I kind of want to try the chocolate.
Right, some Pervitin chocolate. But yeah, so that happened in 1935, and so that became pretty commonplace. And then when the Nazis started, doing their research, they started basically figuring out that this is just a really good performance-enhancing drug, and we should give it to soldiers to make them not need sleep. Like you could literally, if you were just taking the meth, you could go like days and days without sleeping.
Really?
And yeah, literally. You could go.
You could probably die though doing that.
After eventually, yeah, but you could go like 3, 4, 5 days without sleeping, and then just like get some sleep, and it just was meth, man. It just kept you up, dude. It was not great for you, I'm sure, but yeah. So they basically realized that when the soldiers were taking it, they didn't need sleep for days. They were very alert. They could fight longer. They could fight harder, and so they basically just started when the war started and the Nazis started fighting. Literally, all the soldiers, all the pilots, and everything were just on meth. Just hopped up on meth the entire time.
Damn.
Yeah,
which was a good time.
They were all just fucked up.
All right, let's get some Russians.
Yeah, right. It was crazy, and apparently, so on the Western Front of Germany, when they're trying to get to France, there's all those mountains, right? Like what are they called? The Mers.
The Alps. The Mers.
Is it?
It's probably not the Alps.
No, it's not the Alps. I think it's like the Mers or something. But yeah. So their strategy was they just need to start going to France, but they need to go through this enormous mountain range, and if it took them longer than like 3 days, the French and the British would have find out, and they would be able to like send someone to, or they'd be able to get ready and send their forces to stop them before they could like really get into France. So they basically just fed all their entire army just tons of meth, and they stayed up for 3 days straight and hiked through the entire mountains. And because of that, they were very successful in the beginning of the war, dude, because their soldiers were just super soldiers, dude. They were hopped up on meth, and they didn't give a fuck, dude. And meth, it makes you like supercharged, but it like your fear is a lot less. You're not too worried about dying, not too worried about anything. You're just ready to fucking go. So obviously that would make you a better soldier, you know what I mean? Back in World War II. So yeah, so they basically just all took Pervitin, hiked for 3 days straight, nonstop through the mountains to get to France, and took the French and British by surprise because they didn't think that, no one thought that was possible. You know what I mean? And to be honest, for a while, like that, a lot of people like to attribute their success to that. To them being literally all their soldiers being,
doing meth.
Like what you were saying earlier, like one German soldier to every like 3 or 4 French or British, like it's because they were just hopped up on meth. They could just go harder and better than anyone else. And no other army was doing this. No other army was doing this at the time. Apparently, part of the French army, their version of this was they gave every soldier had like an allotted amount of red wine that they got from the army every day or something like that. But red wine versus meth, who's going to be better?
What would you rather want? Do you want some meth or do you want some red wine?
I mean, if I was going into war, I'd probably want some meth, dude. Are you kidding me? If I was going to, especially World War II, like the type of fighting they did back then, just like trench warfare, all that shit, no, I'd want some meth for sure. During the flight battles, France and Britain were watching these German fighter pilots, and like they were doing maneuvers that were like impossible because you would literally just pass out from the G-forces of the move. But they were just doing completely impossible maneuvers. So the French and the British were like, what the fuck is going on? How are they doing this shit? But then they could do it because they were on meth, because like the adrenaline kept them from passing out. Damn. So
crazy.
So then back to the fighter pilot that got shot down during the Battle of Britain. The pilot was captured and he had this like mysterious roll of pills. He had this little like box of like all kinds of shit. He had like Coke and stuff that was all given to them. And then there was like this mysterious roll of pills that no one knew what it was. And that turned out to be the Pervitin, methamphetamine. So that's when the French and the British started realizing like, oh shit, like these guys are just like fucked up. These guys are just on drugs, and that's why they can fight so ridiculous. And then not really sure at that point if like the French and the British decided to start doing that or not. I don't think they ever did, to be honest. I don't think that they would do that. I don't know. Maybe
they're like, all right, guys, we got to beat the Germans somehow.
Listen, guys, we all just got to take a ton of meth here. All right, they're kicking our ass out here. And then later on, they found out that Hitler was basically taking like 2 or 3 doses of morphine and opium daily, and that's what a lot of people attribute his crazy ideas to, him just kind of starting to go crazy because he was taking so much like opium. Hitler was actually a health freak, which is one thing. He never smoked, he didn't drink, he didn't do any of that stuff, but he didn't realize like back then they didn't know a ton about like opium and all that stuff, and he had this doctor that was just like, he would inject like vitamins and stuff into him all the time. And then eventually like shit started to go bad with the war, and Hitler was like, I need something like stronger. And the doctor was like, okay, I can just give you some like opium and stuff, and gave him that. So he started injecting him with like opium. Like he was basically just taking heroin. Damn. Yeah.
It's crazy. So
yeah.
They're big druggies.
Yes, dude. The Nazis and a lot of people attribute so much of their success in the beginning of the war to that they were all just like on meth, just methed up soldiers, just fighting till they died, fighting their hearts out. And it does. It makes you a lot more alert, makes you a lot more fearless, makes you all that stuff. So it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people say like crazy conspiracy theorists. People say that like there's Nazi like pyramids and stuff in Antarctica, and then there's Nazi base that was like in Antarctica and all that stuff.
Some people even think Hitler escaped to Antarctica.
I've heard that too. Yeah. Turns out there is a little bit of truth behind that, at least there's a reason why people say this stuff. And we'll get into that really quick. So it kind of all started in 1936. Hitler completed a 4-year plan to boost the German military and get them ready for war by 1940. And he put this dude in charge of developing, basically, it was called the German Fat Plan. And apparently, like, Germany back then was like, they were on a pretty high fat diet, which is good. That's what I do. They were on a very high fat diet, a lot of butter, milk, cream, cheese, margarine, different kinds of oils. And then they also used fats for a lot of other things like detergent, candles, paint, linoleum, all that kind of stuff. So they needed, and Hitler was worried that like their fat supplies could get cut off during the war, like because they don't really have a lot of that in Germany. They have to like transport it from wherever it comes from. A lot of it came from whale fats. You know what I mean? And Germany doesn't really have much of a. Do they border the ocean? A little bit, right? So, but yeah, I think that a lot of their fats came from like outsourced. So he was worried about that. So he wanted to try and like establish a good source of fat that they could get. And like I said, a lot of fats at that time came from whaling. So he basically sent a crew down to Antarctica to claim some land in Antarctica and to do some whaling and set up like a post there where they could whale and like get fat and then send it back to Germany.
Oh, no Nazi UFO under
we can
Arctic
get to
base?
that in a second. But this is like the true. This is all true. So they began like building a factory of whaling ships to send down to the Southern Ocean. Apparently, whaling had just like basically decimated the North Atlantic and the Pacific at that time. Like we didn't respect any environmental stuff. We were just killing all the whales. So like they weren't doing so hot. We were killing them all. We were killing too many. So they had to go down to the South Ocean down by Antarctica. So that's why they had to do that. So in August 1936, they basically sent the ships down there. The German Foreign Office found some unclaimed land in Antarctica between like a Norwegian zone and a British zone. So they were like, that's where we're going to go. We're going to go claim that land. Apparently it's the region between 20 degrees east and 10 degrees west, part of an area known as Queen Maud Land. I'm sorry. So in 1938 is when they officially went down there. They took down there. It took about 3 months to build like the boat that they wanted to build. It was called the Schwabenland. You could probably say it better than me. The Schwabenland. And it sailed from Hamburg in December 1938 with a crew of 82 scientists, officers, and enlisted men. There was one Nazi official on board, as per, that was just part of the requirements. It reached Antarctica about a month later. They began aerial reconnaissance using like flying boats. They named the land New Schwabenland after the boat. And basically the flights were so that they could like photograph the land and do like cartography and like basically claim it for Nazi Germany. But one of the flights ran low on fuel and had to throw out like a bunch of their gear to lighten it. Otherwise they were going to go down and die. So like all their like recordings and everything was gone from that. They had to like ditch it. Supposedly there was a box of metal swastikas they were going to use to claim that they ditched overboard, and people have been trying to find those, I think, for a while now. But they've never been found. Apparently, like the amount of land that they were trying to recover, that they were going to claim there, is like bigger than like Germany.
Really?
Yeah, they were going to like double in size by just claiming this land. The Schwabenland didn't last very long. They completed their work, began the long trip home on February 5th, 1939. So it wasn't there for that long. This is actually where they discovered the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. On their way home, they were doing scans of the seafloor, and they found the Mid-Atlantic Ridge on their way home. They were the first people to discover it, which is like a big like ridge of like volcanoes and stuff that is somewhere in the Atlantic there. But yeah, so I mean, it says most of the expedition's science was lost during the war, or it was kept under wraps until they didn't publish it until 1958.
Oh, wow.
So, the people say, there's ancient secret Nazi bases there and stuff like that. And there could be, based on the story, they went there. It's just, according to what we think of the facts, they didn't establish any base or anything there at all.
They just went there.
They didn't even they were going to set up a whaling thing. They didn't even do that. So that mission kind of
Maybe it was like a secret for something else. Like, we're going to set up a whaling base, but it's actually like an underwater UFO base.
Yeah.
Where all the Foo Fighters came out of. All right. So one other thing about the Antarctic mission. So after like a couple years after the war, the U.S. sent like a whole bunch of naval to Antarctica called the Operation High Jump. The plan was to do some research and do some exploration of Antarctica, but theorists contend that they were actually there to scout out Nazi bases, any leftover Nazi bases, and to like wipe them out.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
that's what.
When was this?
This is like right after the war.
Okay, and that's so they did that.
So they did that, and the theory contending to that is, that like any not bad Nazis who survived or anything just wanted to just like wipe them, like make sure they're all gone. So that's a theory.
So yeah, we'll just end it on Joseph Mengele. End it on the bright side. No, I'm kidding. It's probably Joseph Mengele was very fucked up, man. Dr. Mengele, he was known as the Angel of Death. All right, so if that tells you anything, this is gonna be really chewy. This is a rough one. So, spoiler alert: if you don't like hearing like intense, crazy stuff, brutal, ruthless stuff, just end the episode now. Catch us next week. But yeah. So Joseph Mengele, man, he was born in Germany, 1911. He was born in like the Bavarian region. Smart kid. He grew up he had like a bunch of older sisters or older brothers and stuff. So he was like the youngest, and his mom like really, really liked him. Like his mom was just obsessed with him apparently. So he always had that. His mom always told him he was going to be this and that. So he had high hopes for himself. He graduated when he was 19, smart kid. He went to the University of Munich to be a doctor in the 30s.
Nice.
1930.
What a nice occupation.
He started off all right. He was very fascinated by eugenics and the like selective breeding, all that kind of stuff. He was very, very interested in that. I think that was a thing going around Germany at the time, right? Eugenics and how the Germans were superior, basically. Or eugenics is more just about the fact that some races are superior than others and how to like breed them, this and that, right?
So he was trying to like mangle some stuff together.
Yeah, he was very fascinated by eugenics and selective breeding. So, and then he also started to believe that the Jews and the Slavs were subhuman, which is another thing going around at the time in Germany. Which led to some bad stuff. He didn't think that Jews or Slavs should be able to breed with pure-blood Germans. 1937, he officially joined the Nazi Party. And then very quickly after he joined the Nazi Party, he became part of the SS. All right, so he was not a good guy. He joined the Nazis. The SS was very into eugenics and believed Jews and Slavs were below human. So not a good start for this guy. But apparently he was a pretty good soldier. He won multiple medals. He won on the Eastern Front. He fought like against the Russians for a while. For the first couple of years, I think he was in the Nazi Party as SS. He wasn't even doing like science or research. He was basically just fighting, and then he got injured pretty bad in one of the battles against Russia. And so he was given a medal, and he was given the position as the main eugenics researcher for the SS. And then he was sent to Auschwitz be able to, not like sent there, but like he was stationed. They said, you're going to go to Auschwitz and you're basically just going to do all your experiments, whatever kind of experiments you feel like doing on these people, because they're basically guinea pigs for you. So his first job, he was basically part of the selection committee when you first got to Auschwitz. So like when they were just sending trainfuls of people there to Auschwitz, his job was to look at them and decide whether they should just be killed immediately or if they can work. So basically children, just immediately he'd kill them. They're dead. And apparently like he was very like he almost seemed like very like calculated. Like he would just look at someone, tell them, just say, yep, kill this one, or next one. Like it didn't faze him at all. You know what I mean? So he was definitely a bit of a psychopath. I think we have that. That's for sure. He chose when inmates could work, which ones could work, which ones couldn't. His first day there, he sent 1,035 people to the gas chamber. His very first day.
Nice start.
So yeah, got off to a good start there. Apparently over 80% of the people coming in there were just immediately killed. Yeah, just insane. Any child who was under 14 or under, killed immediately. Wow. But while he was there, he instructed guards to seek out people that were like deformed, like had any sort of like retardation or physical deformity. And then he was also very, very interested in twins. He thought that twins held the secrets to. He wanted to figure out how to create more twins, basically, because he wanted the Germans to be able to create Aryan twins, all the time whenever they wanted. And so he took a lot of twins and did like experiments on them. One thing he was very fascinated with people with eye color, because he thought that blue eyes was like superior. So he was very interested in eye color, and he wanted to figure out how to like turn people's eyes. So he would do experiments where he would like inject different colored dyes into people's eyes and stuff, like kids, dude, like children, and he would inject dyes and stuff into their eyes and try and figure out if they could change it, this and that. It was crazy. Anyway, so the kids that he chose to do experiments on, at first he treated them really nicely. He was like really, really courteous with them, like gave them candy, was very respectful with them, and put them in like better quarters and stuff. But it turns out that was just so he could kind of like manipulate them better, and he could gain their trust a little bit so that he could do all these crazy experiments on them, man. Apparently through all these experiments that I'm going to talk about, all the stuff that he did, anesthesia was never used. Not once. So all these experiments were just raw. All natty. He would do weird stuff like removing specific organs, removing people's limbs, and seeing how he basically was doing experiments to figure out like how far you could go with people before they just died, because they were just, to him, they just didn't matter. It didn't matter if they died or not. So never used anesthesia. He would immerse people in like freezing water and keep them there until they died, just to see how long they could live. Also the same in like scalding hot water. He injected people with all kinds of like experimental chemicals. They were trying to figure out like different chemicals for warfare. He castrated like a lot of boys and then sterilized a lot of females. So he just was crazy. He deliberately infected wounds with gangrene so that he could see like how long people could live with it, how long you would survive. It was crazy. It was crazy. He was a really messed up dude. And apparently like people say he did all this stuff and like he didn't feel like remorse. Like he didn't, you know what I mean? He just did it for science, he thought, and it just didn't care about what happened to the people. Oh man, this is the most ruthless thing. One of the famous stories is that he would allow women to give birth to kids, and then he would tape the woman's breasts so that the baby couldn't eat, and she would have to watch her baby just starve to death, which is crazy. Apparently one night he just built like a huge fire, like a big ass bonfire. That night he threw 300 children into the fire. See how long they could survive and stuff. So these don't even really sound a lot like experiments, dude. These are more just like sadistic, crazy ways to just kill people. I mean, some things were experiments, but like some things just sound like he was just a sick guy who just wanted to do weird shit to kill people. Like I said earlier, he was really fascinated with eye color. He would inject children's eyes with different dyes so they could change their color. And then after the kids were murdered, like after he had them killed, he would collect their eyes. Dude, and he had apparently he just had a huge box full of just like eyes that had like numbers and letters on them to like, so he could tell like whose they were and all that stuff. But he just collected people's eyes. Another famous story, he tried to sew two twins together at one point. Trying to conjoin them and see if they could survive. He literally they had their blood vessels and their organs connected. And apparently they died 3 days later, obviously from gangrene. But it's crazy. So Joseph Mengele was a crazy dude, but they did a lot of weird medical experiments down there. They figured out a lot of stuff, though. To be honest with you, I don't think Joseph Mengele himself figured out too much, or I don't even think any of his research really got out. But the Nazis in general, they discovered a lot of medical things. So, but yeah, Joseph Mengele, man, he was a weird, crazy dude.
Yeah, that's
Really
crazy.
sadistic, man. Like all that stuff he was doing to kids.
Apparently, the Japanese weren't much better. They did some crazy experiments to the Chinese as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like but all Axis powers had no remorse.
Yeah, they were all just like
pigs,
crazy, man. They were all just for the advancement of their people, and that's it. They didn't care about anything else. After the war, he went on the run. He got captured by the Russians, but they didn't realize that he was an SS soldier. So apparently the Russians gave him to the Americans, and the Americans didn't know he was SS either, so they just let him go. And he escaped to Argentina, where he lived. He basically lived out the rest of his life there. But he lived in Brazil he died in Brazil in 1976. Apparently, he did not have a great life towards the end, which is nice to hear because he doesn't deserve it. But apparently, he was very like poor and poverty-stricken.
There's a whole movie about it if you want to watch it.
I've heard about that. A movie about him in Argentina, right? The Good Doctor, it's called, right? It's a terrible name, okay? He was not a good doctor. He was a terrible person. He's credited for probably killing, 30 to 50,000 people himself. Or at least having a hand in it, like sending 30 to 40, 50,000 people to their death. As far as him physically actually killing them, it was in the thousands. But yeah, so he was a bad dude, Joseph Mengele. Not a good guy. But yeah, like you said, there's a movie about that. All right, so I think that's enough for this topic here. I mean, so much messed up stuff that went down in World War II. It's just crazy. It's crazy to think that was it was less than 100 years ago. It was about, 70 years ago?
I'm not
80?
the greatest at math, but it was like...
Yeah, it was
around
about
there.
80 years ago. So it's crazy. It's crazy to think that... I think is there still anyone alive from World War II that...
Yeah, they're just
I think
really
there's still
old.
a few,
They're just old as dirt.
But they're really old, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Isn't there still a few Holocaust survivors alive?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think we're definitely going to revisit World War II sometime in the future.
Eventually.
Because there's just so much to talk about.
Yeah, eventually we can get back into that.
But I think this episode covers some intriguing topics of World War II, supposed and the actual.
Yeah, some more, mysterious stuff at the beginning, and then kind of some more serious stuff at the end. But yeah, so that'll be enough for that. But next week we're going to be talking about the JFK conspiracy.
Oh yeah, and how aliens played a role.
No, we may have a full episode next week with no alien involvement.
Yeah,
I'm hoping so. I mean,
I feel like it's pretty tough to find an alien.
I'm sure that people have tried, but
if you dig deep enough, you can always find something.
I'm sure people have tried, but we're gonna go an alien-free episode next week. So we'll have to come up with a new drinking game. That one, but it's gonna be about JFK. Maybe we'll get a quickie conspiracy in that episode. Who knows? But yeah, thank you guys for listening to the Mystery Bros, and I think that's it. You guys have a good one.
Peace.
Peace out.
Mystery Bros. Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros. Mystery Bros.